This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. Runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. The Valley mourns the loss of longtime community members. Youngstown has been mourning the death of lots of local patrons. These people account for a deeply rooted community foundation that cannot be forgotten. Now, what that means is that they have played a big part in the lives of everyone in this community that they've crossed paths with. Now, Pastor Locke P. Beecham Jr., and Reverend Timothy H. O'Neill are just a few of a long list and many long-term people that have been lost along the way when it comes to people who have served this community. Story number 2. Why Delphi retiree stories locally. Not too long ago, Delphi was faced with bankruptcy and left some retirees in limbo. Now, Delphi retirees have been in and out of the headlines. Some time back, they made the news because they had put their faith in some elected officials to help them with an issue that seems to have been in and out of the headlines for some time, and that issue is being compensated as a retiree. Story number 3. YSU makes moves towards 5G. The internet to the business community has made logistics and communication a bit more efficient. Now, that's the internet. That's 5G, the speed. Now, when this happens, it's spontaneous. It happens over time, the development of technology. But people always want more. 5G will give people more, and they always want more. So 5G will give them more speed. So YSU is homing in on the education of this type of technology. Now, only time will tell how this story develops, especially as 5G becomes very, very in demand and popularity of it gains attention so people can invest in it to actually make it even more possible on a global scale. And that's why story number 3 made in this week. Story number 4. YSU is seeing a dip in enrollment. Schools, universities, and institutions need students. Institutions need students. They need people in the classrooms. Students help pay the bills. That's a fact. YSU made local headlines because enrollment is low. They're seeing a quite dip. I think it went from it's pretty high. They're losing millions, so this is not good. Now, this is not good in the field of grants because without students and without more people, less funding in academics. That's what academic funders look for. Now, if YSU keeps seeing a dip in enrollment, we could be seeing a lot of new empty buildings at a university that has been pretty much in quite a bit of headlines lately. Story number 5. Locals want a voice when it comes to their kids. Children are the future. They are the doctors, teachers, landowners, and politicians. The majority of the world's parents will do anything for their children. Now, if this were not so, then the activity at the border would not have the majority of the attention that it now has. And this is a fact. People will do a lot for their children. Parents are literally suing the Boardman School District for having their kids wear a mask. And there's reason for this local story. There's also intellect. There is also intellect. in this story because a wise parent knows what effects this could have on the development of their child, especially if these masks are blocking their airwaves. They know that this could possibly cut off some oxygen to the brain. Now, this is a big story that will stay alive as long as mandates stick around. The local Vindicator article that brought the story to life points out comments made by Dr. Fauci, who is still under investigation for gain-of-function research, and they're saying that he said some things about how masks are not that effective and should not be worn. Now, this story is still developing, but people have their eyes on their kids, and that's why this is such a big headline. Story number 6, 1.5 plus COVID cases in Ohio. So what does that mean? If COVID-19 is such a problem, then why are we still here? This may sound like a question that a kid would ask, but in the local debate of COVID-19, this has caused this story, it has caused businesses to struggle. It's caused confusion, education problems, and a 1.5 million plus spiral in cases. So the question of if COVID-19 is such a problem, then why are we still here? That question may seem to be asked by a kid, but what is keeping this story alive is the data and the high survival rate, and the question of if COVID-19 is such a problem, then why are we all still here? Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Whew, it's been a long week, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to get up every day, every morning looking for the stories for you. Is Youngstown seeing a case of organized crime? In news, you always notice patterns, but a car literally drives through a gas station on Market Street, according to local statistics. Crime is a problem. This is what the statistics are saying. Crime is a problem that usually stems from somewhere, and that's what people who watch stories find out. Now, if Youngstown cannot overcome the crime beast, the city could be seeing another leader at the controls soon, because a lot of people are hitting Tito in the stomach when it comes to crime. That's why story number 7 made it in this week. Whew, big headline. Story number 8 in the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week for you. It's election season. November is just around the corner. How did Tito do in his tenure? It's election season, folks, and Mayor Brown wants 4 more years. Here are some issues taking center stage when it comes to Tito's re-election bid. Roads. Youngstown still has an infrastructure problem. Crime. Youngstown ousted a police chief that nearly spent his entire life on Youngstown's police force. Number 3, morale. The city residents are marching. They're still marching, and confidence in future plans seem to be at odds with other city leaders and activists. Some people have different views about the city, where the city is headed, and a lot of people don't. Education. The city is still trying to get over a failing grade, which over the years has caused a mass exit from the public schools, leaving huge voids in many areas. Education is big. Business. Youngstown's business climate has to be able to accommodate the future of the local job market. Now, these are the issues that Tito has to have a plan for to get another term, and there are different people at odds. There are some editorials that made the news that you may want to look up, showing they're highlighting some of the strengths and weaknesses of some of these candidates, but this one editorial points out some good things that Tito has done in his term, but what people are saying is they want to see more results, and at the moment they don't see those results. But Tito is saying, what the editorial is saying is give Tito more time, and that's why story number 8 made it to the top this week. But those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories, so don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Were you not
assigned to guard the four corners of Escobar, were you not given the duties to rule with an iron fist?
I'm not strong enough anymore.
Who is the leader of the governing board?
Luna, sir. She has been appointed to take the place of her father.
Escobar's governing board is in danger. Our land is producing enough crops to survive.
I can't feed Escobar with dying crops. Magic Lady Nikki, what the hell are you talking about?
She comes at nights and visits me in my sleep.
Hush! I know your story. You can't hurt her anymore. She's coming to you for a reason.
What do you know about my son?
Does this drawing look familiar to you?
That jewel is glowing again, which means something's about to go down.
They want to hand Escobar over to you.
I don't think it would be wise for Luna to put herself in danger at this pivotal time.
Do you doubt me?
If we unite now, we'll save our planet and our people.
You have to defend Escobar.
If she's worthy, they won't kill her.
This gonna be fun. I ain't used him in a minute.
I'm with Luna,
Defend us, Luna. You have my blessing.
and that'll be our ticket to the North Star.
I'll be a new Escobar.
Welcome back, welcome back. And now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. Folks, I had somebody stop by the shop this week, and his name is Jerry. If he's out there, thank you for stopping by. But he was telling me how he and his wife, I guess they tuned into the show, and he told me the importance of people getting informed. And every week, I don't know who's watching the show, but I do my best to keep this show alive for you and to make sure that you're getting informed. But all of the people out there watching, I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I do my best to try to keep you informed with the top 8 headlines and developing news stories. So shout out to Jerry and his wife. Thank you for stopping by the shop, and I'm doing everything I can to keep everybody informed. And I'd explained to him that it's not an easy show to do because I have to stay on top of things, and this was out of my comfort zone at first, but I've got used to it, and I'm getting used to seeing people coming and telling me that they do tune in. It is greatly appreciated, especially people who understand the importance of being informed at this critical time, and not only our nation's history but the history of the world. Staying informed is very, very important, and thank you all for tuning in. So let's get to it, folks. No, not too many laughs today, but just down to the point at this critical time. But I thank you guys for tuning in, and I thank you for tuning to the show. So let's get to it, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. A few reasons why the holidays may be a bit rough this year, which is, I don't want it to be rough. I love the holidays. We got to hang in there, folks. Here is a list of things that America has to overcome to have a happy holiday this year. The number 1 thing is inflation. Inflation is eating away at the average citizen's pocketbooks, gas prices, the pay, and all of the stuff that they have to pay, and the fact that people are not making as much. These are huge factors in this story. Number 2, savings. The average American has depleted their savings account. That means they don't have much wiggle room. Number 3, the still war against Christmas. People, believe it or not, America still has a growing problem, a battle to keep Christ in Christmas. And if anybody knows about Christ, Christ was a patron for the poor. He was considered God in the flesh for people who believe in the story and understand the story of his mission and his ministry. So that's why story number 1 is a big headline, and people are learning that Christ may be our only hope if you believe. Now, COVID-19, number 4, COVID-19 fatigue is another one. It may be hard to usher in the spirit this year due to COVID-19 fatigue and the fact that some people are still mourning the losses of relatives. We've lost a lot of people. There's still a lot of people on the battlefield trying to get through this crisis and this craziness. Now, if we can somehow overcome these problems, it will be a rough holiday season this year, but it will be more passionate if people understand the spirit of giving, the spirit of generosity, and the spirit of thinking that everybody does not think the same. And some people who want to see mercy and the actual true spirit of Christmas could get it from those who understand what it means and what it feels like to suffer and show love and mercy to those who have never ever felt it before. And that's why story number 1 made it this week. There's always hope, and the people understand what hope is. Big headline. Story number 2: who is making the most in the COVID-19 war and why you should know. Money buys you things, and COVID-19 has been a cash cow for some businesses. This story has put Wall Street in the headlines. The COVID-19 war, folks, has a lot of people taking desperate measures. Lawsuits and businesses have been shifting their business plans. These are also on the radar because a lot of businesses are literally changing their name to stay afloat and changing their business model. The average citizen also has been having a problem getting access to cash, financial capital, loans. I'm sure you know what it is. This story has put banking companies like One Main Financial in the headlines due to financial gains that they've created in this, in all of this. They've been actually seeing growth. Now, what analysts are finding out is that is the fact that companies that sell cheap stuff and provide financial loans and services have somehow been seeing an increase in activity, which shows that people are struggling. Tech companies have also been seeing gains. Human behavior and buying trends plays a huge factor in how this story develops. That's why story number 2 made in this week. Mercy, folks. Keep mercy in the headlines, please. Story number 3. North Korea is not backing down from its missile ambitions or whatever ambitions the country may have. More mystery surrounds North Korea and the country's missile programs after another story surfaced about another missile being fired in Japan's direction, which is not good. North Korea has stayed in the headlines with this missile program. Former President Trump even met with the leader, Kim Jong-un. North Korea also met with several, well, they probably made contact with several of soon to be fired cabinet members in former President Trump's cabinet. Now, whoever North Korea is working with has yet to remain in the headlines. Nobody, there's little stories here and there, but nobody's certain. They only see what they see on the cargo ships. Now, there were a few stories that made headlines some time back, but the country is still on the go when it comes to nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction ambitions. This could shift the foreign policy agenda because North Korea is not backing down from the request that from America to stop any nuclear or missile programs. So that's why story number 3 made it this week. Big headline. Story number 4. Why is the China growth story so important? China is testing super long-range missiles, or a missile. They say that they've got proof that they've tested this missile that goes all the way around the world and then kaboom. Big headline. Now, they have also been in the tech and 5G discussion quite a bit when it comes to who is the global power machine, especially when it comes to technology, missiles, growth, nuclear power. This is all in this story. Now, if the God that America trusts in is all powerful, yeah, this is a big question, Nick, because if China keeps making headlines the way that they have in the past years, we could be seeing a huge shift in the way the world does business. If costs keep rising, China's growth could cause a shift in the industrial market also, and how many American businesses do business with China. Now, the big thing to focus on in this story is the relationship that America and China has developed over the years. And if this relationship continues to go sour, China will continue to be in celebration mode as the potential new world power. This is why this story is so important and causing a shift in American ways in the American-made business strategy. So that's why story number 4 is such a big headline. We have to somehow keep our eye on the global market. And why is that important? Because it's important because when there are no eyes, you cannot see. And that's why story number 4 is such a big headline. Well, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't go anywhere. You're in the Mediator to me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8od.com. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week, folks. I do not have special abilities to fly. I cannot run through walls. Sometimes I feel like it, and sometimes I feel like I can fly. Sometimes I even sing. I can believe I can fly in the shower, but I can't. Only thing I can do is give you the reality of a situation, which I come in every week looking through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. And if I did try to jump off a building, then that's when you know it is truly time to call somebody who could give me some serious help, because I would be no more. So don't try it. Do not try these things at home, but do try to be informed. Mediation is tough, but somebody has got to do it, folks. So let's waste no time. Let's get revved up for Media Maniacs, baby. Woo! Let's get to it. Story number 5. 2020 was the year that authorities want to forget. Not 2021, but 2020. And I'm going to say this for the reason because over 60,000 cops, and not only just cops, but FBI people were reported to be assaulted in what many say was a war that's been brewing in the ghettos of America, not just the ghettos, but across America for some time. Since the evolution of the American empire, there has been an underground war being waged on how police conduct everyday business. How America defines the bad guy is the critical part keeping the story alive. And when people see change, or see carnage, not just change, but carnage, carnage that they want resulted in change in the street, they often forget about the root of this growing problem. Now, this is why policing stories are staying in the headlines. In 2020 was the climax year that now will be defined how we resolve these problems and the resolution of the story and how it all ends, unless there is a sequel, which we hope there's not. I hate to see all this craziness and all this back and forth biting. It's really getting nothing done but more craziness, more revenge, more hostility, and more killing. Now, either way, policing stories are staying alive, and that's why story number 5 made in this week. Hope I got enough fingers. Big headline. Story number 6. Is there a connection between crime and technology? Facebook is not the only tech company having issues. The connection between crime and technology stems back further than the invention of the cell phone. The eye-opening fact in this story is what technology has revealed about human nature. Every nation that welcomes in technical advances is literally under a surveillance state, pretty much on a day-to-day basis. Technology is a great resource, but has literally caused crime waves in a flood of crime waves in not only just in areas but into people's homes, creating vast networks of criminal advancements. Now, this story is getting the attention of Washington, D.C. and could cause a huge shift in legislation geared to regulate technical advancements. And that's why story number 6 made it in this week. Big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week for you. How did the country with so much become the enemy? And why is this important? I'm talking about America. America has a lot of stuff, but what has this story trending is history, nuclear intelligence, military engagements, and a huge amount of political strife is what is keeping this story alive. Now, the thing about this is that although people hate to admit it, America's political divide is causing a lot of internal problems that keep getting worse. There are pros and cons from each administration. Trump's plan for America First could have solidified the course of energy independence, and Biden's Soul of America plan could help repair the internal strife taking place. So each administration has its pros and cons. We may be seeing a lot of cons in Biden. We could be seeing a lot of pros in Trump. We could be seeing a lot of cons in Trump. We could see a lot of pros. And it's just mixed up. But all this seesawing back and forth has really caused a lot of divide. Now, this story made it in because a house divided cannot stand. And at the moment, America's enemies are homing in on the constant divisive tactics taking place in a country with an abundance of resources that are being fought over because of petty conversations and people who really don't want to change, and they hope they can change and wish they could change, but people are who they are, and some of us are stubborn, and that's why story number 7 is such a big headline. It made it to the top 2 this week because of that simple fact. America is simply being divided because a lot of people don't want to adapt, they don't want to adjust, and they don't want to accept the reality that we're facing and that we are divided. Big headline made it to the top 2. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Whew, almost done. And then I go home and eat an ice cream cone with a little cherry on top. Sounds good. What would happen if there was a supply chain breakdown? This is a big headline. That's why I made it to the top this week. Logistics plays a huge part in the flow of goods that get into the majority of the world's businesses, including America's. A supply chain breakdown could be catastrophic in the business and global business arena. Now, what would happen if this supply chain were to break down would cause businesses to take a big hit if they haven't already. Now, this is what got the story in and has it seeping into big headlines, major headlines. This alone could cause any well-developed country, and even countries, to shift back to old school economic solutions, which would have to rely mainly on closer vendors and cripple exports. Well, if exports and imports were ever to be crippled, that would mean that people would just have to rely on local and farms in the nearby community. Now, a supply chain breakdown would really change what you see every day in stores, especially on the shelves. Now, this story has seeped into the headlines. That's why I made it to the top this week, because a supply chain breakdown would really change the business climate if it hasn't been changing already. That's why story number 8 made it to the top this week, folks. Inflation, jobs, the cost of gas, and the supply chain are all big headlines. That's why they made it to the top this week. Well, those are our top 8 international and local headlines that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines, the media. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator, the man in the middle, sniffing and searching and navigating your stories for the greater good of the public. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator with me, Brian West. Love thy neighbor and love thyself. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.